You know the drill. I just say, hey, Mike, welcome to the Mass Construction Show, and then we go.
You got it.
All right.
I mean, I don't know the drill. It's been a while.
Yeah, you're rusty. But you listen every week, so you know.
I have been listening.
I just
You can probably tell who listens, can't you?
No.
You only get numbers?
Yeah, podcast analytics are surprisingly
Really?
crappy.
I can get, like, who went to my website down to, we could maybe talk about that in tech.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and you can find out what page they showed up on and then where they went to from there and kind of follow them through. And
I can tell you how like social media has been transformed over the last couple of years, and I'm kind of into that a little bit. Just I wish I had. I don't have the data with me, but I can. I'll get to it.
Yeah,
I have the general data.
Okay,
so,
were you planning on talking about that down the line?
I just thought about it.
Well, no, it's,
I didn't actually plan very much. So you sent it to me Wednesday night, and I was out almost all day yesterday. So like this morning, I was looking at them again, and like I made a couple quick notes, and then I was like, screw it, let's just go.
Yeah, that's how we more or less did it last time.
Yeah,
anyway,
I was like, you know what? Hopefully it's somewhat engaging.
Yeah. So now who does that? Is that Tim?
Yeah, so Tim's our marketing guy, and so we have a Google Analytics page that's, he kind of gives me, we meet one-on-ones every week, and kind of at the end of it, he's like, all right, here's where we're at. And we kind of go, like, numbers-wise, like, here's how many web page hits we had, here's how long people stayed on your page, here's what other pages, like sub-pages they went to, like, leadership, job opportunities, projects, all that stuff. There's a top 10 there.
Yeah.
Where they came from. So how many people were in Boston, Cambridge, New York, India,
Yeah. It's amazing how granular it can get.
It's amazing. Yeah, you can probably get it down to a server if you really wanted to.
Yeah. And now is it we're going now. We're recording now. So we're just going to count this. This is interesting. So forget welcome to the Mass Construction Show. You're here, Mike Weber.
I thought we were prepping.
We were, but I'm interested in this, and I think other people will be too. So it's funny. So Tim's a marketing guy, but
yep,
he's savvy enough on the data side that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fair amount of. I think it's called Sprout or something like that, where they kind of, yeah, exactly. It gives you all of your, it merges all of your kind of social media stuff, and then there's a Google Analytics page that I think is fairly intuitive once you actually kind of figure out how to use it. Mm-hmm. And so he kind of it's really a snapshot every week that we look at. We look at monthly, we look at yearly, how are we doing, what kind of engagement, and then like we try to think about that stuff, like what does it mean to the company? Okay, so we're averaging 45 people a day on your website. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, okay, well, what does that mean? Where are they going? Like, are they looking for jobs? Are they looking at your projects? Are they trying, like, who are they? Sometimes, we're not getting it down to the server. Like, we don't know if it's you or a general contractor or an owner, but we could tell they're in Boston. We could say, things like that.
Yeah. But the question to that, the answer to that question, I have a thought.
Yeah.
What is it? What does that mean? How's that for a hard question?
No, it's not a hard question. So, just like any other business, you want to be recognizable, like a brand, right? And, as we were, I think I detailed last time I was here, kind of the growth pattern of the company. And basically we had a hard time for a long time, people not knowing who we were. So we can do that job. Oh, and they didn't know who we. So it was, we need to let everyone know what we're doing, and kind of, that's, even if that's just the goal. If you get to that, we think it's a win, right?
Absolutely.
So, that's kind of what we're looking at.
I mean, the ROI on that is tremendous. If it's is
it? I don't know how to measure it. I'd love to see like a real statistic that says this is how you can do that. But right,
yes. Okay, good point. Like, it's not quantitative in that you can see a direct number.
Sure.
But if in the past a 50 million job, you'd want to put a number in on it, and they were like, this is probably a little out of your league. And now when that question happens, they don't balk anymore, then that's success, right?
So I would agree. Yes, that is happening. But is that happening because of Yeah, I'm just a skeptic sometimes when it comes to this stuff. And I do agree that it works. I don't know why, but I do believe in actually doing it still. And I think we have some people who are really good at it. But generally speaking, like, is that because word of mouth? Is that because of the social presence in the online presence? Are there other factors to it? Probably, right? And I don't know how to but I do know it works. And it's really cool to look at your followers per week, on, let's say, Instagram's going like crazy. Like we probably average 25 to 30 new followers a week, very organically. Like you can certainly pay for subscribers and things like that. So hard no on that stuff. Yeah. Like for what? That doesn't mean
vanity
anything.
Metrics.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that's wasted money. So that's surpassed Twitter over the past year big time. So Twitter was our largest. Facebook is kind of dead. When it comes to and then LinkedIn's okay. When it comes to social media presence, I would say people are starting to use it less of a business tool and more of a personal tool, which is kind of aggravating to me. I'm
biting my tongue. Continue. I'm like, let him speak. Yeah. He's the person on the podcast. I'm about to lose my mind.
But you look at it, Yep. And then, and Twitter had a tough year in 2020, obviously. Mm-hmm. Rightfully so, if you ask me. But that's honestly, the images that you need for Instagram, people want to look at them, mm-hmm. and we've kind of really started tailoring our approach to telling the story via photographs and people. Like, we do really cool work. We have really great employees. Like, let's focus on that.
Yeah, I think Instagram has done very well, at least from my perspective on my business, on the allowing more personal connection with people.
Sure.
Right? But I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, just even from an analytics standpoint, LinkedIn is down considerably. And
why?
Well, some of it is just as more volume comes on the platform, there's just that much more in the hose. So there's so much, so it gets diluted, right?
Sure.
If 10 of your connections actually did a post 2 years ago, you would see all 10. Now 200 of them posted, and you're only going to see 50 posts or whatever. You're only going to see 1/4 of those. So
I would agree with that. The dilution's crazy, right?
Yeah. So that's a big part of it. But then I think you're right with the amount of Facebook type posting that's happening there, that a lot of people, champion and think is a good thing. I think it's a bad thing. I never like mute an individual, but I will hit the little 3 buttons on the content. Don't show me this. I'm like, I don't want to see politics. Frankly, unless it's like from a business perspective, like I don't even think like the charity stuff should be there. I know that's probably won't make me any friends, but that's not what it's for. That's a personal thing. Like I don't mind seeing that on a personal platform or on Instagram or something. I wouldn't shun that at all. But to me that's a personal thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gotten out of its intended use when it was started, right? And think about how many contacts you have. How many people follow you, or the vice versa? How many people do you follow on LinkedIn? Like,
it's probably around
2,000, probably.
It's up to, I think, almost 5,000.
5,000. So think about the dilution you just talked about too.
Yeah,
5,000. No one can read that, and especially if I'm not on it every day. I'm working hard to put my phone down more, mm-hmm. Believe it or not. So it's one of those things where, if the email comes in that says, hey, people are taking a look at your profile, or take a look at this post, or someone's moved a job, I'll take a look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, it's kind of gone down. And that's consistent with our numbers when, as a company, going back to that, right? We're going to have, like I said, we'll probably have 30, I don't know the numbers exactly. We'll have 2,000 followers in Instagram next month, probably, just in that surpassed Twitter by 500 followers. And, and that's not like whatever, like, but it is getting the word out. It's like, we are places, we do build cool stuff.
Yeah.
Take a look at like these pipe runs, take a look at the prefab shop, take a look at our employees.
Yeah. I do think you have to be on multiple platforms though, because if you just put all your eggs in the Twitter basket and the Twitter basket goes away,
sure,
you lose all your visibility.
Mm-hmm.
So I am constantly thinking about that. But to go back when you were saying about how many people that I am following, yes, the amount of people I've followed has gone up, but the amount of people that have followed me went up. And at some point, I don't know if it's like a threshold, but when you go to my profile now, it doesn't say connect, it says follow.
Oh, there you go. You're an influencer.
I'll shoot daggers at you now. Yeah, I can't stand that. But yeah, it's so I've been picking up a lot of followers. So I think I probably have 3,000 connections, and I have like 48, 46 or whatever it is.
Sure.
Followers. So that number has gone up considerably, but then you see the views and impressions and engagement go down. So that just shows that there's just that you're vying for that much more territory with that many more people, right? So that becomes a lot more difficult. And then you add on what you're saying, which is like the quality or the intent of the content has gone down.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's just not the intended use originally was, strictly a business platform, like make connections within your industry, and it's just not that anymore. So, personally, this is a personal, only me. I just don't love it anymore. It's like, okay, great.
Yeah. I used to be its biggest fan. I used to tell everybody, like, why aren't you on it? Like, the amount of stuff that I would read that I'd be like, oh, that's interesting, and I could do a podcast about it, or I could learn more about it. Like, I was like, okay, I'm going here. I'm learning stuff about construction. I'm meeting and connecting with other people. In some cases, I'm getting business. That's like, why wouldn't you? I was screaming from the rooftops, like, you're stupid if you're not on there. And now I would tell people I wouldn't invest a lot of time in it because I don't think it's the ROI on that is huge. But I think you have to stay there because I think things change, right?
Sure.
Twitter ebbed and flowed. I'm sure Instagram already has ebbed and flows, and it will continue to do that.
Right.
So I'm not leaving by any means, but
I think just having a presence across the platforms, just to let people know, your story is important because I think it's a recruitment tool. It's a retention tool to some extent.
Yep.
And it also, however big Boston is, it's still kind of a small world, right?
Small. Yep.
So people start to figure out what your story is and what you're doing. We have a good story to tell. Tell it.
Yep. And now you're looking at those metrics as far as driving traffic to your website at all?
So we can do that, and we do. So a certain post may get certain, number of engagements, and then its number of people would actually go to the website from that. Or, the web traffic will jump, on a day where we had a post about a service or whatever it may be that we did. So we look at that and say, all right, that works. Maybe we can do some campaigning on this. All right, let's push hospital service work. We own HEPA cards. Let's, I think that's the most recent one. All right, so let's get some posts on that, right? Let's just let the world know, hey, we own these things. They're hard to rent and hard to get right now. So
if you need them,
here we are. We're not going to rent you them, necessarily, but we want to do the work. So
yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
So the original intent of having you on was funny, not to talk to you as an electrical contractor, but to talk to you as a business owner, because just my personal feeling. And now this goes back to you saying, well, what do you know about the ROI? The reason you were on the first time was because I noticed what you were doing on social media. This was 4 years ago. And I'm like, no other subcontractor is putting the effort on social. Like, these guys get it. And then that stemmed to a conversation that led to lean and prefabrication. And I'm like, okay, yep, this is from a business perspective what I think should be shared. And then part of your conversation, one of our original conversations was, you talked about how you and Bill wanted to go into business, but it wasn't like you wanted to be an electrical contractor. Or like, okay, you're family owned Gaston Electrical, sorry. And you guys wanted to run a business, and you were actually going a different route at first, and then you tacked back and said, well, let's do it this way. So I wanted to just let people know that was kind of...
Turns out we like it a lot, by the way. You know what I mean? It's not... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you ended up...
It was the right business for us.
Yes, you ended up becoming a licensed electrician.
Sure.
I think, was Bill
yeah,
one as
we
well?
both are master electricians, like licensed, so sure. Yeah.
Yep. So that was kind of the intent of the conversation originally, and we really dug in a bit on lean construction. Mm-hmm. And I remember asking you in particular, I said, so you're going to prefab this. Now, mind you, this is a couple of years ago. This is early 2018. And I was saying to you, all right, so you're going to make up the box, and the model says that the MC cable is 75 feet from the panel to the box. I'm like, how long are you really going to cut it? You're going to cut it, 76, so you have a little
I remember
slack?
the answer was 75 feet.
Yeah, and you said 75 feet.
Right. So I will, and it still is 75 feet.
Okay.
Right? But I will tell you that, if you don't trust the system, you're going to make them all 75 feet, but really they should be 68 feet. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's still a lot of improvement that needs to happen when it comes to a simple thing like cutting that MC whip and prefabbing it. And our people do, we've made a lot of changes since we talked last, primarily in prefab. Mm-hmm. We hired an outside consultant right in the middle of COVID. Haley and Aldrich, I'll give them a plug. Nick and Melissa have been great. So they've been working with us, and basically they are lean experts. And they've kind of transformed how we kind of look at the prefab shop and every process we have. We all, continuous improvement is one of our, core values, but sometimes you just don't have the expertise to do it yourself, right? And how do we become a true manufacturer in prefab with lean tenants, right? Well, they're helping us with that. And they would say, all right, that's great. You drew 75 feet for that MC whip, back to that example. But when I go on site, there's a lot of slack in that. Why was it 75? Well, I wasn't sure about the ups and downs. And, why weren't you sure? We could have gone to the site, or the foreman could have come to the shop, and we could have had that discussion. And instead of 10 feet up and down, it should have been 5, and it should have been 70 feet with no slack. And, you do that times 1,000, and 5 feet each is 5,000 extra feet of cable you don't need on the site. You know what I mean? Which is dollars in efficiencies. So we're still working on it, but we've made some. When I say we, I mean it's not me. It's everybody. It's the employees have been huge strides over this, specifically the last year, in 6 months. Yeah.
So Bill has been on since you were originally on.
Yep.
Bill, your brother and partner. And we talked heavily about prefab.
Sure.
So we really dove into like what that looks like and what's in the shop. But I think even since then, it's changed more. So I do want an update.
I think this consulting engagement has really opened our eyes to the lean, and we knew that's why we hired, Nick and Melissa to come in and really transform our processes, with some real, set some KPIs. So some what are the key performance indicators? Yep. Here's where we are. Where do we want to be? And just kind of dig in, like prioritize which ones. Where they sat down with different groups throughout the organization. Where are your pain points to help prioritize the KPIs that we, as a leadership team, kind of agreed to. And then it was like, all right, we're all on the same page. We understand what's kind of hurting us right now as far as efficiencies and. So that's kind of what we've done in the past since you probably talked to Bill, I would say.
Yes. And forgive me, I was just throwing on a backup audio recording just in case.
No problem.
So to back, actually a couple things.
Right.
So most people are going to know Haley and Aldrich as a soils.
Yep, civil engineer, right?
Yeah, company.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. Doing slurry wall or something like that. They're going to be looking at. Is it a...
I think it's an alternate practice within the company. I actually haven't even asked. I did ask the question before we hired them, and I just forget the answer. Yeah, they. But they have a couple of lean gurus that eat this stuff alive. That's what they do. They love it, and they're working with companies like us to improve processes with lean in mind.
Okay, so do they come in and just look at everything? Do you
Yeah.
bring them in and you say, okay, we want to tighten?
Yeah, we started in the
this
prefab
area?
shop. Sure, it was. So here's the deal. Ideally, it's everything, right? But there's so much that in any organization, we all have pods. We have operations groups and CAD groups and estimating groups and accounting groups and service and data and electrical. Even breaking it down further, and then you have prefab, and then you have field, and you can break those down even further as well. So we started in prefab because that's, as you've talked to Bill in the past, and kind of what our beliefs are is we really need to continue to improve that, because we feel like that's going to be kind of the future
How
of
buildings are
construction.
built. Yeah,
you know what I
for
mean?
sure.
That's really, we need to be a leader in this field. So we started there. And they came into the shop, they reorganized everything in the shop. We've got more people working in there now too. We've changed our tables. We've changed up, how the tables look. We've done, the arrangement of all the tools, like, so that cleaning and sorting, those 5 S's of, that was that was probably a couple of months, right? And we're still not there yet. And then and really what we realized, the focus is still there on prefab, but really because prefab talks to, our CAD group so much, and our field forces and our operations forces, we need to train everybody else in that. So now we're working with field staffs, and we're trying to get them to understand what it means to have, pre-task plans and really have those daily huddles that kind of set the flow of the day, to have a clean, workstation and cart. And it's okay to take 10 minutes to clean it up prior to working, because, in making sure all your stock is here and you don't have to go back to the main place you get stock on the job and things like that. Like, just that planning equates to more efficiency.
I would think as an outsider, getting that dialed in the shop probably is not that difficult. Well, is
it's challenging, but I understand. I know where you're going. Go ahead.
Is easier than trying to get that dialed in the field, where you have people on site scattered all over the place, different foremen with maybe different opinions, and just like you don't have that closer to manufacturing setup that you do in the shop. Right?
Yeah, that's an accurate statement. I mean, it's part of the standardization, that kind of lean tenets of standardizing everything. We have plenty of great foremen, let's call it, but let's just pick 5 of them, any 5, and they would all order the same exact prefab pipe run a little bit differently, even though it's drawn the same way, or they'll ask for, it's just a little bit different. So we need to standardize that. So, excuse me, you're right. It's more challenging to get that field staff. So we're kind of picking off a job at a time, and a general foreman and his foreman at a time, to like, let's, get on site and with the consultants, with, our outside superintendents, with our project managers, and kind of understand what we're trying to do here. Like, what's the low-hanging fruit? Let's do that first, and then let's measure it, and then let's talk about what else we can do on site to, help the process and standardize it. And then we'll teach it to the next job, and it's going to be it's not going to end. Yeah. We'll continue to teach, and it's. But we certainly started the process. I already know what's working, and it's a gut. I'm not measuring it quite yet, although there are measurables I can point to. You
have a sense that it's working.
It's working. It will work.
Okay.
It makes total sense. It's a little bit more overhead heavy, because your general foreman is truly planning and which is what they should do anyways. But on a larger job, they're running quarterback in really making sure everyone's doing the planning exercises and all these other things that we're asking them to do, the sorting, the cleaning, and all that other stuff. So the overhead, in my opinion, is probably heavier than traditional construction project. But our efficiencies when the actual install it goes way up, night and day. Right.
And do you feel like some of it's? Have you run into some cases where it's just you're not getting the buy-in?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not outwardly, our staff's pretty good. There's certainly, that some of that old school mentality of like, just let me do it. just like when Prefab started. Like I can do it faster in the field. Yes, and we'll continue to kind of battle that, and it's okay. It's nice to prove people wrong and say, hey, look, wasn't that so easy? After, just try it. It's
because I could see myself being one of those people where like, okay, that's fine in the shop, and yes, there's some improvements we can make out here, but like, and I bet there has to be some frustration that is part of that process, right?
Yeah, there still is. There'll always be. I mean, just like there's frustration with prefab. With let's say there's an error that comes from our shop, and it's the foreman will get mad and say, hey, WTF, like this is screwed up. Like I can't trust the process. I can't and that's you can't trust the process, right? I said that again, and it's well, what? How'd you order it? Well, here's what I gave them, and I'm like, well, what's they'll say, well, the rod length is messed up, as an example. Okay, you didn't give them a rod length here. Did you guys have a conversation about that? And maybe they just guessed. I don't, like you weren't specific in what you ordered, yet you're blaming somebody else. It's always something like that, and it's not. It's working together and collaborating. So when you say it's easier in the prefab shop as opposed to the field, I agree it is, but you can't have one without the other. It's got to be together.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't me pushing back to say like, oh,
no, I appreciate it. Like I think this all the time. It's like, this is going to be so challenging. Oh my gosh, like daunting, but it will change us as a company. It'll change our field staff to be more efficient. That's the whole goal. Drive more productivity, add more value to the project, get less stress off our general foreman, drive accountability from our PMs to our GFs to our foremen to our field staffs themselves, so they all know what they're responsible for every single day. It's clean, it's organized, it's standardized. Like that's utopia, but that's how it should work.
Yeah,
and it's feasible.
Are you having anybody that's like, oh, this is great? Like why haven't we done this?
Sure.
Always.
Yeah. I mean, my So we have a couple of general superintendents who run our field staff, and one specifically has been more involved in this process, just to not be redundant. We didn't have both of them, and candidly, Bill is kind of more involved in this process with the prefab than I am. But so Timmy has been involved in like for instance, he's just like he oozes the lean like mentality now, and,
nice.
and it's really encouraging. It's fun to watch somebody really grasp it. And then we have some general foremen on sites too, who are just kind of eating it up. They're loving it. They're saying, hey, look at this is great. Like jobs are finishing without any firefighting at the end, and it's a work in progress. But yeah, we are getting a lot of that.
Yeah. So it is fair to say that it's a little harder out in the field than in the shop, but you're making it happen.
We will make it happen. It's still going to be, it's a challenge like anything else. If it was easy,
everybody would do it.
We'd just do it the old school way and be happy with that. But that's not how my brain works. Or the company as a general. That's not how our culture is. No,
that's why you're here.
Yeah.
Like, you could keep doing it the old way, but then inevitably you're just going to be on a slow decline.
Yeah, for what?
Everybody else will go past you, and then you're trying to play catch up, and it's just that's a bad place to be, right?
Yeah, I would agree. I never want to. Yeah, you don't want to run an organization or be part of an organization. I'm sorry, like that's just to stay the exact same as always, and it works. Why change it? And that's because we can get better.
Yep.
It's like when Tiger Woods won the Masters. I don't know, was it 2021 or whatever, when he won by 14 strokes or whatever, and then he hired a new swing coach. Like, what for? What?
Yeah.
Well, because I can get better. And I don't know if he did, but but it's the mentality of a culture. It's the culture of a company.
Yeah, it's almost like you don't measure yourself against other people. You measure yourself against yourself yesterday.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
oh, absolutely.
Oh, hey, I'm the best at this. Well, okay, well, you should be better than yesterday, right? So back to kind of that original question, because I intentionally made it very broad.
Sure.
I mean, I guess you answered it in a very in depth and
Did I go off on a tangent?
No, the question was, what's your latest thoughts on lean? And I guess I was meaning based on where you were 2018 to where you are now.
So I kind of gave you like where we're at as a company, right? Mm-hmm. And then my thoughts generally are we're going to see a lot more of this in the construction industry. It already came, but the true manufacturing, lean manufacturing, if you will, is going to continue, and you're going to see, I think, more design build jobs, design assists, because think about eliminating waste, right, is a big tenet. So we'll have an owner will hire an architect and engineer. They'll design a project, hire a general contractor who hires a bunch of subs who will take the drawings that they already spent months and months putting together, and we'll redo them like 100%. So
talk about waste.
What's the value the owner is getting in that, right? It's not. Yes, the receptacle is in the exact same location on both plans, but we had to redraw it, and the design community, we haven't. At least in the East Coast, we haven't gotten to a point where where we say, hey, look it, like we kind of know what this is going to cost anyways. So, we can add value in not just dollars, but time, right? Because that's sometimes the more important than dollars is. And we can do this design build project for you faster, either the same dollars or less, probably less. And, oh, by the way, in lieu of us running, a unistrut, pipe, using unistrut to hang our pipe down this hallway, and the ductwork's going to do the same, and the fire protection is going to do the same. We're all just going to be in the same rack, and we're going to build that off-site together. And like all those things, that's where I think kind of lean and it has to go. Yeah.
So I have a couple comments. One of the problems with design build is the permitting process, because they need a set of MEPs to file for a permit.
But you can get there. In the end, before you build, we do design assist now or design build. Before you might get some preliminary site work in large packages released, things like with really long lead times. You might get all that done prior to like the final documents but you have that final set to build off of, but you're also going to build off them as opposed to redoing it.
Yeah. The thing is, how it would have to be is you need to get in there in early on, because what the owner always wants is that permit as soon as possible, because they don't know how long that's going to take.
Sure.
Right? So it doesn't mean that it can't happen. I just think that that's one of the things that's why, personally, I think that's why we haven't gotten there yet.
You think the permitting is all right?
I think
that's new to me.
I think it's certainly part of it.
I would always thought that ownership groups generally thought that it cost more money to do it. I'm just going to hard bid it. And kind of
yes,
that's going to be the lowest cost option. But engineers and architects, they're busy too. So if there's a mistake, or maybe they lost a conversation that they had 6 months ago regarding a conference room that they didn't put in, that's a change now, as opposed to the design build where you kind of own it. You've been in those conversations.
Yeah, I think they're just used to building it the other way. Is a big part of it.
We've always done it this way.
Yep, they're used to building it that way, and it will probably get said that, well, we need a permit set of drawings, so we haven't.
Yeah, I would challenge you to say that we could do that, though, just as fast, if we engaged early.
Agreed. But that also means they need to pick the GC earlier, right? So it really needs to be, and this all becomes that architects really continue to get pushed out more and more. But it means that the GC is on a lot earlier, and it almost is negotiated work, right?
Absolutely. It's open book.
I should say it almost has to be open.
It has to be open book. Yeah. No, absolutely. That's how it goes. No, it's open book. Here are our costs. Here's our agreed upon fees. Here's our agreed upon labor rates, overhead, profit. All that stuff that's your contract.
Yep.
And then with the main goal of getting to X dollars electrical work at the end. You know what I mean? So then it's our job to be a steward of the budget, right?
Yep.
In all right, that's great. You want to build this space for $10 million. You know, when the architect or, you know, not to throw them, a lighting designer says, hey, look, we want this, you know, fixture here, and, you know, we price it and it's $30,000. We say, well, that's great, but, you know,
here's the budget.
Here's the budget,
that's not in the budget.
and I think, you know, we think that we should be spending, you know, $5,000 on this particular fixture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
So
you can go to
that's
the
our
owner and say, hey, if you want to
it's
get
your
them
money,
to
you can make that choice, right?
Yep.
But I think, you know, going back to like all that wasted time and effort to do it twice before you build a job, I mean, is it's got to go away.
Yes.
Someone's going to realize it, and we are seeing it a little bit. And I know the West Coast and other parts of the country do, you know, lots and lots of design build work, and that's, you know, in our peer group, we have a couple of large contractors out there, and 85% of their work is design build, and, you know, they're a couple $100 million a piece. You know what I mean? So this is what they do with negotiated rates, and that's okay. Like, you're not going to hit a home run on a project, but it's much less risk.
Yep.
So that's
That's
it's a
good
good
for
way to make a
everybody.
living, and then, you know, you're fair price to the owner. You still made some money.
Yep.
And you build a relationship, and you move on.
Like, I much prefer to work that way. I mean, I know the people that I write plans for, whether it's a transportation plan or a 241 plan or whatever, the ones that call me and say, hey, I need a plan for this project. Can you do it for me? Here they are. Go for it.
Sure.
I don't give them a price. I don't, whatever. When I'm all said and done, I send them an invoice. That price is lower every time for a number of reasons. When I have to put the price in up front, I have to cover the downside risks where,
Worst case, right?
this comes back 3 times from the fire department, or then something goes wrong and I got some bad information and now I'm redrawing. So like any of those things, like I have to build that in to make sure that that doesn't happen. And in the background, maybe it's subconsciously, I'm saying that this person trusts me enough that I end up probably almost just psychologically, I give them a better price anyway, because that's how I want to operate. I'm like, wow, this person trusts me enough. I'll probably give them a better price on this than I would have for somebody off this, you know, somebody who was like, "I'll give me this price. I'm going to get 3 numbers."
Relationship business, right?
Yeah.
And you understand the value that you're bringing to somebody. They understand that. That's why they're not asking you to price it. They just want the work done. They're going to pay. Like, they're going to think they know you're going to be fair.
Yeah.
For us, it's hard. There's a lot of GCs and electricals that, you know, probably have that same attitude. I know we do, but you got to earn it, right? Which you've already done. So it's a chance to say, hey, look, and we are, you know, we'll do open book. This is the agreed. It's not, and then we'll add value and you know, watch the budget as we go and prefab things off site with other trades and really get some efficiencies as far as timing and things like that. Like all those things that we can do if signed up early.
Yeah.
The market has to go there, especially with the amount of developer work still going on in the city or in the area. Let's put it that way.
No, I couldn't agree more.
It just makes sense. I mean, it's a trust thing, right? That's what you may think it's a permanent thing. I think it's more of a trust. Like, hey, I don't know, and
well, I think it's all of it. I think it's. I think by the time the owner is educated enough, now institutional or repeat builders and stuff like that, like they probably should have this figured out by now.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
They don't.
They don't.
So those people can get there, but the even if it's an institution that doesn't build that often, or they do some tenant fit out work here or there, but they never have a decent sized capital project. By the time they realize that design build is the way to go, then it's too late.
Yeah. Well, I would say the institutions we work with, I know for a fact that there's some pretty smart people who run their facilities. So they probably already know that. My guess is that there's some, whether it be still the thought that it's the lowest price is still going to be the hard bid work, which is fair. Like we can have that conversation. they're skeptical for some reason. You should probably have one of those people on and,
Yeah.
find that out. But
That's a good idea.
they should have it figured out. They really should. And we have some. I would tell you that the large developers in the area, they do have their favorite general contractors, and they're pretty smart. And they say, hey, look at you name the big GC or even smaller one. Hey, we have a relationship. We know you're fair. This is going to be your job. Start lining up. We're gonna need a couple numbers from subs, but so at least that started. And I would tell you that a lot of the customers we work for, that yes, there's still bidding work, but at least there's a fair amount of work that they own.
Yep.
Straight out of the gate,
Yep.
which is the smart way to do it. I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, I do it in my home.
yeah.
I have somebody that we've done a dormer, we've done a new kid, we've done a lot over the years since we've moved here. It is the same person every time. And it's not, I don't get 3 prices. I don't even get 2 prices. It's
Right.
like, we have a relationship, and that is so worth it.
And you know the work you're going to get, and you know what? You can absolutely find someone who's going to do it cheaper.
Yeah.
But we don't want to live in the. We want to be fair. But we don't want to live. We don't want to be low cost provider.
Yep.
Have you ever heard that? Like that, it's the cheapest thing in the world. Like,
Yeah.
it's always the worst product.
Yes. Yep.
It's not.
But it is definitely some of that mentality. Like, you look at the car companies that have tried to say, we're just going to put the lowest price, sticker price, like Saturn. There's no negotiating. Here's our price. That's what everyone says they want. Like, oh, well, why won't they just say what the lowest price is and come in? All those companies go out of business because nobody really wants that. Everyone goes in and says, like, all right, well, what's really the best deal you can get? Because they're just trained that that's the way you deal with car dealerships. And unfortunately, construction has a little bit of that still left in people, where they think, oh, contractors screw you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
it's a misconception. I mean, sure, there's jerks out there, right? But
sure.
If you have a relationship with an owner and you developed it, and you're on the level of the projects you guys are building and the GCs that I deal with are building, you're not getting the guy with the pickup truck that's going to take your check and take off,
No,
right? Like,
exactly.
I don't know why they can't get out of that,
Right.
But
I agree with you. No, you're right.
they do. Another, kind of alarming thing for the architects is, I was having a conversation with a gentleman from Greg McGee from Lend-Lease, and Lend-Lease has a team of programmers that are, developing software that can build buildings off of, or design buildings off of parameters, right? And they're spending so much time on it that they've now had to build an entire building because they have so many programmers. They've outgrown the space, so they had to give them a new building. And I think they have an Instagram account. It's called Podium.
Okay.
And you would think Podium Construction, but
Sure.
I don't think that's what they're driving at.
Okay.
And he was just saying, you basically would say, okay, I want a building with these dimensions, this high,
Yep.
this many floors to do this
Type
type
of
of
space.
use.
Yep.
Boom, you hit the button, and in a few hours you have 48 different designs of a building.
Every architect listening to this is cringing right now, right? And it comes out in like a Revit format or an auto.
It comes out in a model, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like,
A usable model. I assume.
it has to
Yeah,
be.
right.
They're I think their new, I don't know if it's CIO or whatever, the head of technology there is a guy from Oracle that they brought over, and they're just developing that software themselves. And to think about that, like, okay, give me a CLT model, give me a masonry model, give me a glass, give me
Right.
this, like,
Yeah, I mean,
That's
there's some really
insane.
cool technology coming about, right? That makes sense. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
The more I think about that, I mean, why not?
yeah,
I don't, you can have like a million parameters based on, all right, the stairs, there's 2 sets of stairwells over, 4 floors. There's this, there's that. You could start making it, electric room stack, and, we need this many elevator banks, and it's going to be, why not?
yeah,
That makes sense. I just, as an owner, Well, that's kind of like you can buy, or if you were going to build a house right now, right? You could do one of two things. You could go to an architect and say, "Hey, develop me this house and this property. Here it is." Or you could go online and you could buy plans that, So it's similar to that, but in a commercial world.
Yeah. But where they can do, 58 different iterations of it in a heartbeat. Like I only bring it up because you look at like, okay, if more design build starts happening,
sure,
that's more out of the architects and engineers' hands.
Well, we still need the engineer and architect. Let's a lot of times when you design build, we still need a PE stamp. Now, so I mean, you still need some oversight. Like they know codes really well. They know, you don't don't want me doing architectural finishes for somebody. You know what I mean? Yep. There's a lot of value there that we would still let them handle, but we're really talking. We're not personally. We're talking about the guts of the building.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like a lend lease thing, it's probably the next step for them, right? All right. Well,
at this point, we're going to just have a stamp in house, and
sure.
Yeah.
Do they do that now? Just real quick, are they doing that like for their own use, or they want to sell it? Is it going to be a product?
He didn't say on that front, but I know they do like they build hotels on military bases as well, and they're all like repetitive
cookie cutter sort of. This is how it looks
type
like.
thing. So like that would be perfect for them. Sure. Like they could, and I only bring it up because I just think it. Obviously, architects and engineers have a ton of value, but will you need as many of them? There's going to be the place for them, right? They're not going to go away, but I guess I'm not even. That's not a fair question for you, but
yeah, I mean, I don't. The answer is I don't. But there's probably value. If let's use the contractors out west that I was talking about earlier. I believe they have PEs on staff as electrical contractors. You know what I mean? Yep. So they can stamp their own stuff. So maybe that starts to happen.
I could really see that happen.
I would, in the short term, I would partner with local companies who who also have relationships with us both and the architects and ownership community. But that's probably a feasible next step that going to where you're talking about.
Yeah, it seems like we're headed. Yeah, a mix of design build, technology, and all that changes the way the building gets designed.
Yeah, I mean that's why.
But speed to market goes way up.
Yeah, we're designing in house. We're drawing, in Revit or AutoCAD, whatever you have, a model with the other trades at the same time, and as we're pricing it, and that process can be shortened and not redone. Yeah. And here you go, Mr. Owner. It took us 3 months to do all this, and it's going to cost X, for our scope of work. And oh, by the way, this is the exact model that we're building. So, if there's changes, just let us know.
And then you're like basically have scheduling, design, and estimate all integrated.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
Because if the GC is talking to the electrical contractor about pricing, they're like, okay, well, what if we swap and go with this? You could change that in the model, and that brings the price down, and like
totally. Okay. And that's on a design build. That's a good point. So let's talk about multiple trades. We're all in the same room designing, if you will, and there's a conflict. So we have 4 4-inch conduits hitting a large piece of ductwork. Traditionally, the ductwork's been modeled first, and we're kind of low man on the totem pole. Oh, move your 4-inch conduits. Well, great, but that's going to cost me, forget about the time it's going to cost to draw, but it's going to cost me $10,000 to route them the way you want me to. What's it going to cost you to move that ductwork? Well, $5,000. Okay, well, for the project, that's a better thing to do. Yeah. And then the owner's getting value there.
Yeah, that's like the IPD world.
That's exactly right. But it's, design build, you can actually do this similar thing. The contract is just structured differently, right?
Yeah. So. Yep. It's probably a good segue. So let's into prefab, right? Because we talked about lean as a principle, and so much of that, it just really ends up overlapping with prefabrication just organically. You guys started off with the back of your office
Yep.
being a prefab shop.
We
The
moved.
next progression was a new space.
Yep.
Solely dedicated to prefab. How did that, like, what has happened? Where are you at?
Sure.
Because you were
We're out of space.
yeah, because
We didn't lease enough.
I think January 2018 when we were talking, you were still in your original.
I think it was 2019, right?
2019. Yeah.
Yeah, we were still there. We literally moved it. So COVID was last March, so it was the November or December before that. So 4 months or so before March of 20. So November, December 19 is when we leased some space across. It was kind of short term, 14,000 square feet roughly, warehouse and prefab. We've come to realize that they don't mix well. Not that our people don't get along. It's just you really need a prefab space and then you need a warehouse space. And when you need the warehouse items for prefab, you ship it or bring it one at a time, and then it gets made and assembled and then out the back door, right? We have 25 full-time people in the shop, round figures with another, 3 detailers. And, we're starting to rotate our field leaders, in 2-week stints in there as well. That's just beginning literally as we speak, like last week. So that's kind of our next step to make sure that they understand the full process. Hey, you kind of in between jobs or it's a downtime, like we can come in for 2 weeks or longer, depending on the, what they're doing, either build some of the stuff that you've ordered and like oversee and see how the system goes. And so generally speaking, that's working well, but we've also realized that, instead of 25, we probably need, 40. And it's
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And you go try looking for a commercial building to buy or lease right now, in an area that we, is specific to us, and it's like trying to find a house right now, right? It's market stuff. So we'll figure it out. We always do. But yeah, it's just.
Now you probably need though that you would want that to be kind of contiguous, the warehouse to the shop.
We would. I think I prefer them to be separate. I mean, under the same roof, sure.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, my preference would be to have the office, prefab shop, and warehouse all in one spot. When we bought a 22,000 square foot building in 2009,
probably thought, what are we gonna do with all
where
this?
we occupied a quarter of it and we leased half of it out, we were like, this is more space than we'll ever need. Now the entire thing is office and occupied, and we don't have enough space in the, so.
Yeah, this is just such a great example.
It's been like, every couple of years we look at ourselves like, oh man, we need more space. It's okay.
But it's just a great example of, we could talk about, Lend-Lease creating that software and this is going to happen, and everyone says, yeah, right? But the reality is, like, all of these changes, we're watching them, we just forget them because they've happened. Our business has already changed drastically in a very short period of time over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And, like, you look at you guys, and it's not just about growth where the company is growing. Like, that is whole completely different means and methods of building.
Right.
From where you were
10, 5, you name it. It's from last year. I mean, it's a continuous evolution, really.
And then you talked about like multidiscipline kind of designing. Like you look at Cox, who's experienced the same thing.
Yep.
They moved their office, and I don't know how much bigger they made it. They made it a hell of a lot bigger.
Yeah.
And I think it was 3 years maybe. They've already built an entire new building
Right.
in the back.
Good for John. That's awesome. Yeah.
Because the prefabrication piece has gotten so big, and part of what they're building in the back is a section for multi-trade prefabrication. So like that's happening. It's not like, one of these days. And I know, like, I don't know that much about what Canistraro is doing, like other than what I read. But
Sure.
I know they're doing a lot with it. I don't know if they have multi-trade and multi-discipline trades in there, but
I think they probably do some of it. Where they'll they'll put some electrical VFDs on their, pumps and stuff before they ship them out, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Or have an electrician come do it for them. But
Yeah.
that's my guess. I haven't been to their shop either, but they're a pretty sophisticated company.
Yeah. But just the idea of the fact that they're building that new building with a space meant for that, like it's happening. It's not like, oh, that's coming. Like,
No, I think it's happening too. I just, it's really in the end, we're trying to add value to our generals and our end users, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, we need to plan more, so a little bit more overhead, and have super efficient, productive installs, less on site. And as a union member myself, that's not always great, but we're still doing it with union labor in the prefab, and I do think it's going that way, and you can't ignore it. Like, it has to, because the people who in the end pay for all the work we do, that's kind of what they want.
yeah. And here's the thing, like, you don't want to be completely shut out. Like, it's great to say, like, okay, well, we'll keep doing this because it puts more people to work, right? The old way.
Mm-hmm.
But when Open Shop is prefabbing everything, and then there's no union work, so like, well, that's not good either, right? So it's like,
no, I would agree, and
from your perspective,
from
right?
my perspective as a business owner, right, union or non-union, I think the whole entire electrical trade and construction in general is heading that direction.
Yeah.
It's very hard to argue against that.
Yeah.
So I would say, if you want to be in business in 10, 15 years, you also need to do that. And in order to be a leader in that space, which is really what our end goal is you need to do it now.
Yeah.
So that's, doesn't matter, union, non-union, like, that's just where it's going.
Yeah, what's that there's that saying that says the best time to do something was 10 years ago, the next best time is today. Yeah, right. Like, it's like,
plant a tree, right?
Yeah, there you go.
A guy from FMI always says that.
Does he? Okay, there you go.
Best time to plant a tree, 25 years ago.
So your prefab it's continuing to grow.
Yep.
You probably would like to put more people on. You have some
Sure, and we have
constraints with the space, though, correct? Yeah.
It's getting there. Sure. I mean, we're not quite there yet, but it's getting there. Also, warehousing's an issue, right? So, getting materials has been very challenging these days. So, because we don't trust the process 100% yet. So let's just say, I can have 500 downlights delivered, in next week, from the factory, we're like, all right, get them, because but the reality is no. We only need, 50 next week, and then 50 the week after, and because that's the amount that we can. That's how just in time should work. We get them, we prefab them, we ship them out to site, just like that, because, they're just going to sit around for 9 weeks or whatever, however long.
But has supply chain altered that?
Yeah, I mean, sure.
It has to, right?
Big time. I mean, we can't buy plastic boxes right now. Romex costs more than MC cable. That's
insane.
It's insane. It's altered that for sure. So so there's some other variables that I think your question is in regards to prefab. We need more space. The answer is yes, but I also feel like we have a lot of space if we trust the process of.
If you're more efficient.
If we're very efficient, right? And if you plan well, and it's like you get a bigger space, which we will, but before that, and then we'll fill that up, right? It's like, let's just become efficient, and we are. There's just you always find that you can do better.
Oh yeah, you give anybody more space, they're gonna fill it with junk.
That's right.
Right, like that's human.
It's human nature, I think, and it's nice to have a couple of extra just in case, right?
Yeah.
And no, we planned it well. Everything came the day before, and now we're gonna build it and ship it out, and we'll never see it again. It's perfect.
Yeah, because it's not just a couple extra of one thing.
That's right.
It's a couple extra of everything.
That's right.
And then that's hundreds of extra things
and then that
you don't
takes
need
up space,
the space.
right?
And yep.
Which is hard to come by. So
and I think all the efficiencies you gain by actually doing the just in time and zero waste, even if you do have one where like, hey, if I ordered an extra one, this one broken one, we'd be all set. But okay, so you pay triple and get it overnighted. Like, how often does that happen?
Yeah, I
you
mean,
do that, and then you make up for it 100-fold.
Sure.
On the rest
space
of them.
you gained, right? Or I agree with you.
Yeah.
This is just like, again, it's me like talking like how we all as a company really want it, but it's just got to get down to those granular details for every process that you do and have to kind of eliminate that waste.
Okay. Well, it's a good transition. What does the supply chain impacts that we know they're being, they're a major issue across the entire industry and multiple industries. What does that look like for you?
Sure.
And what do you think the outlook is, even just short term? Because I know you can't really.
So copper pricing aside, right? I follow the copper index every day because we buy a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
That aside, what does it look for us? It's a challenge. So we have, a large high-rise residential, and we can actually get Romex for this particular project, but the pricing is astronomically high, especially to what we bid it on, a year and a half ago. We can't get boxes that are plastic because I guess the plants that made them down in Texas, because of the weather that they had, they shut down basically. They're not back up to full capacity. I've gotten a lot of different stories that they just use force majeure to cancel all their contracts. And now I don't know if it's fact or not, but then they said, all right, we're just going to start up slowly. Resins I heard plaster, all those types of things are really affecting everybody across the board. In the short term, I'm being told that it is what it is. Just looking at historical things when this stuff has happened, it'll probably be back to normal. And when I say normal, it'll be maybe the pricing will still be high, but we'll be able to get things and lead times will come back down to a regular, however many, whatever it was 6 months ago, in a year, maybe a little about.
Yeah.
This is total hypothetical, but I've been reading about it and I've been trying to figure out where it's going because that's what I have, and we have to make educated guesses on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be challenging.
Yeah.
It's going to be challenging to get things. And you're fighting with every other project that there's still a lot of construction going on. I know that you read, across the nation.
Mm-hmm.
So we're battling with all those other jobs and all those other, sub-economies.
Has it impacted things yet in a sense that where it's delaying projects or shelving projects or?
Knock on wood, no. It's impacted us financially, and I'm sure a lot of other people. And the fact that, like I said, you have to, you bid on a job and 6 months ago, and because copper and wire pricing and plastic boxes and things like that basically have remained somewhat steady over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Sure, there's been some dips and increases, but somewhat steady, and availability has been pretty consistent. You don't buy all that stuff and warehouse it. That costs money. It's not a lean tenant.
Mm-hmm. So
you kind of get it to a point where you're ready to buy it, and now it's like, whoa, that pricing is way higher than what we carried. And it's like, so it's affected us financially. It hasn't. Lead times are affecting us. We've been very transparent with our customers. Like, you can't get a lot of bus duct and switchboards for almost, what used to be 12 to 14 weeks is now half a year.
Wow.
And half a year is a long time when you're doing a job in 8 months, and you really need to think about that stuff ahead of time. We are dealing with some pretty smart developers and general contractors where, we're bidding on work right now that doesn't start until March of next year, with anticipated awards to subcontractors in June. So, they're going to give themselves a 6 to. My theory is that it's a 6 to 8 month buffer to get your stuff ordered. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just,
it would make sense if they would.
It's also helpful that they have the designs done, which never happens, right? They don't have the designs done so far in advance, but I think that's part of the reason. It has to be.
Yeah.
They have to think like that right now. It's just very, very difficult to get lots of things. And unfortunately, that's just kind of what we all are dealing with.
It's funny. I've been reading up on lumber.
Yeah, I've been reading and in general about it.
Yeah. and some pretty smart people on the topic actually don't see it stabilizing.
How long?
Well, no one will put a time on it, but they're, per 1,000 board feet, that's 1,600 was a crazy number, and now they're talking about 2,000.
Sure.
Right? Now, that's not like a stock prediction, right? It's much more of it's a commodity, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's easier for them to look at, the supply chain and what's availability and what's coming on. And so I don't think it's just someone saying like, oh, Tesla's going to the moon, right? Like, it's okay, well, who knows, but are you looking at contractually any way to protect yourself?
We're talking about it. Yeah. I mean, the jobs that we've already signed contracts on, we'll have some conversations with some generals and owners, but we're, the
contract.
It's a contract signed.
Yeah.
It's not, it is what it is. We're big boys.
Yep. You should have locked in a price or whatever like that. Like,
there's 1,000 ways to, exactly. You should have warehoused it. You should have done whatever. Mm-hmm. But, there are some conversations we have to have. But, we're protecting ourselves in the fact that, like, hey, if we bid a job today, it's good for X amount of days, 30, call it. And then, if no one does anything with it for 90 or 100 and copper increased tenfold or 10%, whatever, well, guess what? We have to reprice it. Like, it's not, why, you didn't make a decision. We don't have a signed deal. This is, so that's kind of, but you have to also be transparent about that and say, hey, look, the market's crazy right now. It's very hard to get these things. We can honor it for 30 days. And when there's a big number to some of that stuff, we just need to make sure we're communicating that.
Yeah. Because, historically, you've always said this price is good for 30 days, right?
Every quote we put up says that. But
right. And
in the end, because labor pricing was known and what your increases are, and commodity pricing was relatively stable, it was still the same price.
Yep.
60 days later.
Yeah.
So, but now you have to kind of, just got to look at it a little bit, be smarter about it.
Yeah. Because, otherwise you changed the game on people, right? You changed the rules of the game on people where they're like, all right, the last 10 jobs I did, it said 30 days and I gave it to you at 90 and now all of a sudden there's a problem. Right? So that's where you're saying just communication.
Yeah, it's just a communication thing. Yeah. It's like, hey, look, this is
real.
Right. And it is real. It's
huge dollars.
It's huge dollars. Yeah. When you have a high-rise building, we might have $1.5 $2 million of copper in that job, just in wire, right? Yeah, so if that increases, 30% in 6 months since you bid it, like those are big dollars. Like, and we don't have a contract, so why would we sign? It's a hard thing to eat. Let's put it that way, because you can't control it.
Yeah.
We can't control it, right? It's not like we made an error in our estimate. It's not like we made an error in on-site production. It's something that's a bit out of our control.
Yeah, it was a developer that I was talking to. It was a podium job, but the podium level is concrete or steel. I forget what it was a steel package for the podium. They originally started out, I think it was at 160,000. The steel package had already gone up to 240,000, and they got an email or a call that morning, and it was like, if you don't have this locked in by the end of the day, it's going up another $60,000.
So it went from a 50% increase by end of the day.
That's
yeah. I've seen quotes for copper recently from our distributors who are in constant contact with the factories, and they said this price is good until 5 p.m. Eastern today. Same thing. It's like,
bananas.
I need time to sit on this. This is, some of them are large.
Yeah.
Where we're already kind of probably going to lose a little bit of dollars on the actual buy here. And we're saying to ourselves, well, I need to dissect this. And it's like, well, the price changes tomorrow. It might go down, but it probably not the way it's going. Wow. So yeah, it's, I don't remember, I've been doing this for, 20 plus years now. I can't remember commodities like
being
this crazy.
Drastic, yeah.
I've seen, we've lived through some, the construction market's like a sine wave, right? You're always, you're up, you're down, you're up, you're down, and sometimes the downs are long and sometimes the ups are long. But I don't remember the commodities like this. And I read a lot, but I can't, no one can tell me why either. So it's even more frustrating to someone who is kind of analytical and wants like reasons behind things so that we can solve them. Obviously COVID, obviously, the weather in
Natural
Texas,
disasters.
that's great. Sure, I understand. Yeah, not that's great, but you know what I mean. I understand those.
Yeah,
but
there's some trade stuff going on, but then I think a huge part of it is just these developing nations coming online. I might be off by a little bit, but you'll get the point. China from like 2015 to 2018 or 22, a 3-year window, used as much concrete as the U.S. did in the entire 20th century.
Right.
So that's insane, right? And continues to do that, right? And so as these developing nations come up into like first world status or whatever the right term is, developed nation status, right? Like the demand for resources is gone through the roof. And so it's all those things coupled together, right? That's my thoughts on it. Who the hell am I? But my thoughts on it's that perfect storm of just tremendous demand, and then coupled with maybe trade issues, coupled with
some natural disasters,
COVID,
pandemic,
all that,
all that stuff. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all feasible. I don't. It makes sense. I just I wish I had some more certainty in my own world, because we need that.
Yeah. No, it's got to be horrible for you. I just want to check the time. Okay. How about labor? Like, so materials are obviously a nightmare. Labor's a lot better than materials, but what's your outlook from a
workforce?
Yeah, from a workforce standpoint, like are the people available that you need?
So short term? Yeah, I will. I mean, the answer is yes. So I would tell you, and I don't know the numbers exactly, so I'm going to give you approximates. The number of apprentices in Local 103 that will be accepted this year, they had over 10 times as many applicants.
Great.
For that class. So there's a demand for people to get in to become, local union electricians, which is wonderful for us.
That is wonderful.
So, I mean, labor's expensive, right? But, I mean, as far as the available labor currently, specifically to Local 103 in, eastern Massachusetts, I would say is it's still available.
Okay.
There are some, there is a list at the hall, but it's not, I mean, what's happening in the market generally, from what I'm seeing at least, is the quick hit tenant fit outs, the redo and restacking of floors by a company. That stuff's not happening right now. Now I'm told that will happen shortly. I'm told that our every architect and engineer I talked to was really busy, and I think some of that office rework is starting, is going to happen.
Filter through.
But obviously, because of the pandemic and no one's been in the office, it hasn't. No one's like, why are we spending money on that? We're already wasting money on rent, So fortunately for us, we've had some backlog on some larger developer projects. So I would say that the labor staff, generally speaking, is primarily doing that type of work. Pharmaceuticals, commercial buildings being changed to lab life science stuff. That's happening a lot.
Yeah.
So the labor is currently not an issue. And it's available, but I think generally speaking, it's stable as opposed to.
And then on the office side, like the in-house, the project managers, the estimators, it's got to be a grind. It's a grind for everybody that I talk to.
To find people?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to find good people. We're fairly picky. I would tell you it's always a grind to find really smart people who fit your culture, who share your mentality when it comes to improvements and how to go to market and how to talk to customers. I would say we've been really fortunate with that, though. We've got we've had some key hires over the past year, and we're still looking for more. But it's and our people are, as a whole, a really good team, and so we're fortunate there. But we're always looking to add to that. And we're always, it's we do see increased revenue growth, and that's, I think the whole market, anyone who does kind of larger construction work is probably seeing similar stuff right now. Generals, subs, you name it. So we are always looking for, here's my plug. We are smart, qualified people who want to, get on board to get better.
Yeah, I want to
do some cool work.
It's funny. I'm testing out starting this week. And we'll talk about this and then we'll wrap, because I'm curious your opinion on it. So over the years, I've just always had a lot of people reach out, whether it's when I was involved at Wentworth or, just for whatever reason. I think being a building inspector, working for a trade association, I just had a lot of contact with a lot of people. So over the years, I get a lot of interested parties on both sides of that equation. And I thought about it. I said, could I find a way, because I'm always in this battle of like mass construction as a business that makes money. Yep. And then mass construction as the podcast and social media and the website. And there's been some great content coming on the website recently that has gotten a lot of engagement on that. And there's just so much that I want to do that, and things that I know will work even, but
on the content
on
side?
the content side,
okay,
right? That I can't get to because the content side does not produce an income.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
it helps
talked
the
about at the beginning that it might, right?
Yeah. Oh,
it's hard to measure.
Yes, it'll drive business, but it doesn't bring in direct.
Yeah. You're not working hourly and getting paid for those 2 hours that you put in.
Yeah. Sure. No one's paying me when they download an episode. No one's like, I haven't done advertising. I don't want to do that. At least now I don't. I haven't yet. Sure. And I don't. But I never say never. Yeah, but right now we're in my headspace. I don't want to do that. But back to the fact about like you think differently, I'd be curious kind of even your advice on this. I see that there's a need there, like the system's broken, right? Whether it's LinkedIn, like the paid version, right? Or Indeed, or the headhunter model. Right. Nobody's thrilled with any of those, right?
Agreed.
Right. I hear that over and over. And then I got, so I'd been thinking about it, and I said, I wonder if and this has been done a million times, but if I on mass construction posted the jobs that people were that companies were looking for, if they sent them to me, right? And I would also want to include like municipalities, like Boston's looking for a plans examiner, Mass DEP is looking for an environmental person to do this, right? So it would be an interesting place to have local Massachusetts construction jobs. So it would be focused, and it would also be the people that are in this the mass construction ecosystem, which to some degree self-selects, right? If you're bothering to go to the website to read about code or lumber prices or new construction tech or whatever, right? It brings a better caliber of person, I believe, to that location. And then couple with that a 5-minute podcast, right? So you had a position that you needed, right?
Yep.
And if you're looking for a PM, right, you could take a PM job description and an estimated job description and cut the letterheads off, and they're going to be pretty darn close.
Well, no, I mean, not tactically, but yeah, I know what you mean.
From a GC world, yes, subs will be a little different, but
sure,
being a PM at a tenant fit out company where you're really almost like a project exec. You're estimating, you manage every single trade package or whatever, versus you're at a big company where, okay, you're going to go there, you're going to have 3 trades, maybe 1 trade.
Right.
You're going to manage that thing. It's a different
world.
It's a different world. And then there's like the culture piece. There's the personality pieces. There's what does a PM here or an estimator here look like. So to have that person come on for a 5-minute podcast,
meaning like the hiring manager,
or in some cases, I would think even the CEO would be, if it's too big of a company,
like,
right? Or like a division head or whatever. And I have a 5-minute conversation about what it's like to work at your company. Like, what do you value? Like, what, and be very real about it. Like, what are the hours at your place? And you can put the nuance in there, and like, what do you value? And like, there are certain companies I know super hard charging, type A, like, we're doing a ton of hours, we're grinding it out. We're like, like, okay, I don't want to go work there.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Some people are like, yeah, I'm going to fucking crush it. They've got a bonus. Like, I'm going there. I'll pound 80 hours a week. Fuck that guy. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, awesome.
That's the mentality. If it's the culture, sure.
Yeah, right? And what does that do? That, like, I'll finish and then I'll shut up. So, 'cause I really want your feedback, but I want to give you all.
No, give it all. Go ahead. I'm taking notes.
Yeah, it self-selects on both ends, right? Where you don't get a candidate that is super laid back and just wants to have a flexible work schedule. If you're that type A company, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't have a headhunter in the middle just wanting to land somebody somewhere, right? And I'm sure there's good headhunters that don't do that, but like, how do you know who you get?
Sure.
Right? And so there's a lot of self-selecting, which is the person that's listening to this podcast is, odds are, is going to be a better employee, in my opinion.
Well, they're smarter now because they listen to you. Is that what you mean?
No,
I understand.
You know what I mean?
They care about what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're invested in their trade. They're invested in construction.
Yep.
Yeah,
you could play a video game or do
totally
whatever.
Agree. Yep.
Or you could listen and learn about construction. If you're doing your day job and then you're doing this after,
you
love it and you care.
You have a high give a shit factor probably to what you do every day.
And you want to be better.
And you really like it. Well, typically when you like things and you dedicate time to it, you want to get better at it.
Yeah.
Sure.
So to close the loop there, so I think that is an awesome thing that I would really enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a problem to solve. But the reality is to manage the inbound with the job postings, putting it on the website, knowing when I have to take the thing down. Right?
Yeah, there's a fair amount of work on all that.
Yep. And then scheduling a podcast, recording a podcast, editing it, writing the show notes.
Sure.
Linking everything to it. It's a ton of work. Right? Well, it's I shouldn't say it's a ton of it's
enough work that you're taking away from the money making of what you do.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah.
So, like, I guess what's all your thoughts, and then kind of what would be your advice?
High level, I think you're onto something. You kind of hit the nail on the head of how people in my position kind of think about Indeed and recruiters, and again, they're not all bad, but they're certainly not all great. Mm-hmm. I would say that there's some really cool. You're right. You do know a lot of people, and you've got a fair amount of following. So I think I like the way your brain works when it comes to that stuff. So my question to you would be, you have to make, if it's going to take time from your daily life, in the absence of like having really free time to do this, right? Mm-hmm. Or like, if you weren't running your own company, let me put it back. Mm-hmm. If you weren't running your own company, and you could work 50 hours a week for somebody else and still do this on the side, and like, because you like to help people, and you like, let's just pretend these are your reasons, and you think it's a great idea. Well, that's worth it to me, because it's like you're engaged, mm-hmm. You love what you do, like. But since you are running your own company and you need to make money still, there's probably a revenue aspect that you could easily make that is, well, let me give you an example of where I'm going with this. So we have a recruiting internally. So if you recruit internally, so if you're whoever you are, you bring us a project manager. And I'm going to mess these numbers up.
Yeah.
But and they stick around, we hire them. And it was your referral, and you stick around for 90 days. Like, there's a $2,000 bonus for you.
Yep.
That's like an everyday thing, right? And if you bring us a general foreman, there's a $1,000. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but we communicate this with all of our employees.
Yep.
Hey, this is so like. Think about the structure like that, where we're already doing that internally, and I'm sure a lot of customers. We didn't make Shamit. Shamit did this for years. I forget who I was talking to over there. They hopefully I'm not stepping on any
Blowing up
toes.
anybody's spot.
Yeah, but I mean, they had like some younger employees who were basically like full-time recruiting because they were like, "There's a ton of money in this," you know what I mean? And they were hiring like crazy. So
it probably
like,
saved
you got to do
money,
your
though.
day job as well as recruit.
Yeah.
Absolutely no. It's a really, really great business idea, right? They didn't have to deal with recruiters. So if I'm as a business owner, if you tell me, "Hey, look, I'm going to post these and I'm going to do this work," and when it comes in, that's my fee. Well, I'm already paying that to it. Things like that. If you wanted to make money. Now you'd have to figure out like what that actual dollar amount was. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I also think that you'll probably just meet a lot of new people it will happen organically. There's some benefit to helping people like that too. That isn't monetary.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Both companies and people like helping them. And I would also say if you're going to do a 5-minute podcast, don't do it with me. Do it with one of my project managers. We're looking for a project manager position. Do it with them.
That's a good idea.
Don't do it with me. Like I'm like uber biased, and sometimes don't know every detail that's going on in the company candidly because I can't, or else I'd go crazy. I just can't. No one wants to tell me everything, right?
Right.
So you want to do it with a peer. And not even the manager. I would do it with a peer. You want to hire an estimator for Gaston? We'll go talk to one of my estimators for 5 minutes. I'll prep them and be like, hey, this is what we're doing. It's kind of a cool idea. And just tell them the honest truth. Because, when we're recruiting for positions, like that's one of the steps we usually go through is, hey, here's a couple people that isn't Mike and Bill or our HR manager, that, or maybe even your direct manager, like, to have a conversation, ask them what we're really like. You know what I mean? Like find out what the company culture really is. What are the work hours? Like how do we treat everybody? Like those types of things that are important. Like we already offer that, but if you could do that and publicize it, it's actually a great recruiting tool for someone like me, right? Yeah. Because you get to hear from some of our people that good, bad, or otherwise. They all have a choice to work wherever they want. They work for us because they want to be there, I hope, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of me.
Do you think execs would be comfortable?
I would. Why not?
Yeah. That's actually, I like that's.
I may not, we might talk about who.
Yeah.
No, but
we're not sending Billy. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, no, I would absolutely. Why not?
And you think it would
there'd probably be some sort of a review that some execs would probably want. I'm not sure. Yeah. Honestly, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
But you're like I firmly believe this. Our employees can work anywhere else right now.
Yes.
I'm convinced they could all get a job.
You're 1,000% right. Yep.
It's not even and they choose to be with us. They all have their all different reasons, right? My hope is that it's not money. We hope that that's just a fair number for both sides, and that like we agreed upon it. We'll talk about it once a year, whatever. And it's fair. Like and so it's just once it's fair, it's out of the conversation, and then it's culture. What do you have to do every day? What's your job title? Like, is there room for improvement? Like, is there Do I like the people I work with? How do my managers treat me?
Yeah. Do you see a path to growth?
Do they want me to grow? How can I grow? Some people don't want to, by the way, too. Mm-hmm. Some people are like, I really like what I do. And that's okay.
Fine. Yeah,
but like, maybe we can get better a little bit in what you do, or efficient, or whatever it may be. Like all those other things should go into why people work for us. And you'd probably get that out of them as opposed to hearing it from me or somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. My original thought having it be CEO, because usually like the culture kind of will stem down from that person, right?
I mean, like, I'm the biggest fan of the company going. Like, I don't, right? Not that our employees aren't, but
no, it's a great perspective because it's
or maybe you do both. Maybe it's a 2 minute and 2 minutes. I mean, it's a little bit more work, but I assume you'd do something like this on Zoom anyways, or you'd record it virtually, so it's not like they're coming, and doing this. So. It's not a huge heavy lift. You have some prepped questions, and that's like you say, getting all that's the easy part is getting the people on microphone. It's after that. I would suggest doing with peers.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a great. Like I hadn't thought about that at all, but I think that's an excellent idea.
Or instead of me and the peer, do it with like our HR manager and the peer, or you know what I mean, or something like that. Like there's probably.
Yeah, and it could be different for each company.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Because a smaller company...
It might be the CEO, because they're going to be working directly for them.
Yeah, you would want to hear from them, right? Or they only have one estimator.
That's right.
And, and that person is leaving in 2 months, and now they need one, right?
Sure, exactly.
No, that's good. And then the big reason I'm asking is, like, do you think that idea works? But secondarily, like, yes, like I'm being completely blunt. I would need that to be a revenue piece. And it's funny, I'm not doing it because I want revenue. I think
you just don't have the time.
Yeah, it brings value, right, to this whole thing that I'm doing.
That's what I'm saying.
But it has to make money for me. Like I can't.
I understand. You just don't have the time.
Yeah,
right. It's the same thing. Like I would connect, you with another friend. Let's say you were looking to become a project manager at a GC. Well, I know a bunch of GCs, and you're a buddy of mine. I would gladly set up meetings and do all that stuff for free because, but like to do that over and over and over would become time consuming and would be like, that would be very difficult to do. So, you do it because you want to, like,
and I do it now.
The reasons behind it are great, right? But
I do it now all the time.
I would, as an executive, I would pay for that.
Yeah. And would you envision that first model you said, which is if someone gets placed? Because the trouble with that, though, is then I end up in like a tracking thing, like where did this come from? And
isn't it all trust at that point too? You pick your customers.
Versus like, hey, it's X.
And that's not so there's two ways, right? Yep, I understand where you're going with that. So, hey, look, it's going to cost X for me to produce all this stuff and post it for you, right? And maybe that's a cost only. Like that's going to cover my costs. And then maybe there is, if I do place somebody, maybe there's something else as far as a fee.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it wasn't successful, it doesn't cost me anymore. If it was successful, okay, well, after 90 days or whatever the number is. Yeah.
Because I really think you wouldn't get, it was funny, I was talking with Emily Sheedy, who you know, and like her and I were having this a similar conversation. She was like, do just a podcast. Because then it's still a lot of work, but it's less work. So I'm going to test that out this week.
Sure.
I'm recording with, there was two people, and what really pushed me over the hump, on one day I got texts from two different companies saying, hey, I really need X, I really need a Y. And
I have some customers that text me often about that stuff too.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me. Like I don't, I'm not going to like poach one to another. Like that's not fair. Nor would I do that, and I wouldn't expect people to do that to me. But also, like most people, are who are pretty good are employed, right? So they're not going to tell me that they're looking for a job. So they would tell you though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Some people just tell me like, oh, like I got to get out of here. Who's good? Hey, or this headhunter's throwing, XYZ company at me. Do you know anything about them?
Yeah. I mean, that's
right.
Think about that. When I get those phone calls from headhunters, though, I'm always like, again, there's good and bad ones, but
And that's not
someone
2,000.
as someone who's
That's
looking for
25,000.
as someone who's looking for a job, like the minute you go that route, it's so onerously expensive. It's so expensive to the employer.
Yep.
That I'm not saying it's not worth it at times, because I believe there is a place for some of that. But it's really expensive for what you're proposing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's challenging.
Yeah.
We've had some limited success with that, and
Yeah, because I really think it wouldn't drive a lot of people. I don't think someone going on is going to get 12 people apply. No. But I think
might be the right person though. All you need is one.
That's what I was going to say. But you'll probably get between 0 and 2 people. But out of those, whether you get that 1 or 2, it's probably better than a coin toss that person would be a good fit.
Sure.
If they've already listened to either an employee or yourself for 5 minutes, are a regular listener to the program, or go to the website to learn about whatever topic, like, it's probably a pretty good bet that's in this market.
I'm no expert in hiring. I think it's a great idea.
I
mean, I really do. Why not?
Yeah.
Now, and then the beauty is you try it, and then you tweak it, and that's just like anything else we do. Is that all right? You test it. Does it work? All right. Well, okay. Was it worth my time? All right. Maybe not. Maybe I did charge more. Oh, maybe we should also not just do the podcast, but do more. And then maybe then you kind of refine the process.
Yeah. I like keeping it to the website, and I'm sorry if you have to go, tell me, but
No, we're good.
You're giving me free business advice. I like the idea of the website and the podcast, because I could put it on a separate page on the website, and in the podcast, it's not like if I pushed out every one of these jobs on social, like, I'm just spamming people, and I don't want to do that. But I would clearly just label it on the podcast feed that, hey, estimating position at Gaston Electrical, conversation with, Sally Smith, lead estimator. I'm an estimator. I might want to listen to that. Like,
right. What do they have to say?
Right. What do they have to say? And if not, you just say, well, I'm just going to listen to the regular episodes, and nobody's getting.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Right. I'm not spamming anybody. I'm not, that's what I want. It's not a LinkedIn ad where it's popping in your inbox or whatever. Nobody wants that.
No, don't do that. Right. I mean, we do it, but it's just not.
Because you have to.
It's not super effective. That's all.
Because what are your other options?
That's right.
But
I think it's worth it.
Okay. Well,
tell me what you charge, and maybe we can negotiate a rate.
Yeah. No, like I said, I'm testing it out this week.
Good.
At no cost, just to do.
Give it a go
and see what that's like, to learn what's the logistics. Because just think about you go to schedule it, and then the person has to cancel, and now you're trying to am I going to do that for $200 and record it? No way. It's a hassle.
So
yeah, but all right. I don't think I'm going to ask you the usual 2, 5, 10 years unless it's anything. You've kind of. You've kind of
I had a crystal ball,
right?
Yeah, I think we've kind of gone through. It's just about getting better, man.
Yeah,
it's just and compete, be the best. When those are what you want to be as a kid when you're growing up in athletics. Well, we kind of have the same mantra here. We want to be, the preferred contractor, whether it be from what the distributors say to the developers to the generals. We want them all to be oh, those guys are great. We want to work with them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the end goal. That's every year.
And
we're getting there.
Yeah. So we're going to continue to see continuous improvement, more prefabrication. That's kind of what you...
More lean tenants throughout the company.
And as an industry, though, you think that's just going to... That's where we're going.
It has to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Excellent.
Thanks, man.
Mike, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. See you.